I never thought I would start packing my dead grandmother's personal effects in a race against time. But as I stowed away her leather-bound journals and vintage jewelry, my hands were shaking, not with grief, but with rage. The phone call with my attorney still echoed in my mind. Madison, you need to get to your grandmother's estate immediately. Your brother has already filed paperwork claiming exclusive inheritance rights. He's trying to cut you out completely. My name is Madison Fleming, and until yesterday, I thought family betrayal was something that only happened in movies. I carefully wrapped Grandma Eliza's crystal paperweight in tissue paper, remembering how it had sat on her writing desk for as long as I could remember. The late afternoon sunlight filtered through the stained glass windows of her Victorian home, casting kaleidoscope patterns across the hardwood floors. This house had always been my sanctuary. The place where I'd run to when my parents' divorce turned ugly, where I'd spent summers reading in window seats and helping Grandma tend to her prized roses. It held so many memories, memories that Vincent apparently felt entitled to erase. My phone buzzed. Vincent. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever justification my brother had for betraying me, I didn't want to hear it. Not yet. Not when the wound was still so raw. The voicemail notification pinged a minute later. Against my better judgment, I played it. Maddie, I know you're there. Mr. Hargrove called to tell me you're clearing out the house. You need to stop. Those aren't just your memories to take. His voice was calm, reasonable even. As if he weren't the one who'd falsified documents claiming Grandma had changed her will on her deathbed, leaving everything solely to him. The lawyers will sort this out, he continued. There's no need to make this uglier than it has to be. I deleted the message, fury building inside me. Vincent had always been our grandmother's favorite, the golden boy who could do no wrong. The successful investment banker with the perfect family. I was just the struggling writer with the impractical dreams. But Grandma had promised me her home. She'd told me so just weeks before her passing, sitting in her garden surrounded by her beloved roses. This house needs someone who understands its soul, Madison, she'd said, patting my hand. Vincent has his sleek downtown penthouse. He'd gut this place and sell it to developers without a second thought. She'd been right, of course. Vincent had been pushing her to sell for years. The doorbell rang, interrupting my thoughts. Through the frosted glass, I could make out my brother's silhouette. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Then, clutching one of Grandma's journals to my chest like a shield, I opened the door. Vincent stood on the porch, immaculate in his tailored suit, not a single dark hair out of place. The perfect picture of corporate success. Maddie, he began, his tone placating. Let's be reasonable about this. Reasonable? My voice came out sharper than I intended. You falsified documents to steal my inheritance. What exactly is reasonable about that? He sighed, the perfect picture of patience. I didn't falsify anything. Grandma changed her mind. She knew I could better manage her estate. That's a lie, I said, blocking the doorway as he tried to step inside. She promised me this house. She told me so just before she died. Vincent's expression hardened slightly, though his voice remained even. Verbal promises don't hold up in court, Maddie. You know that. The will is clear. Now, please step aside. This is legally my property now. No, I said firmly. It isn't. Not until the judge makes a ruling. Vincent's perfectly maintained facade cracked slightly. Don't make this difficult, Madison. You're just wasting money on legal fees you can't afford. I'll buy you out, $50,000. That's more than fair. I laughed, the sound hollow. 50,000 for a century-old Victorian on 3 acres in Georgetown? That's not even 10% of its value, Vincent, and you know it. Fine. 100,000. My final offer. We can have the papers drawn up tomorrow. I clutched the journal tighter. No. I'm not settling, and I'm not letting you intimidate me. Grandma left a new will. Mr. Hargrove just hasn't found it yet. Something flashed in Vincent's eyes, a momentary panic that told me everything I needed to know. There is no new will, Madison. You're deluding yourself. We'll see. I started to close the door, but Vincent's hand shot out, stopping it. You always did this, you know, he said, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. You always played the victim. Poor Madison, always misunderstood. Always underappreciated. Get off my property, Vincent. It's not your property, he hissed, all pretense of civility gone. It never will be. You're just a sentimental fool who can't let go of the past. Grandma knew that. Why do you think she changed her mind? I slammed the door in his face, sliding the deadbolt into place with shaking hands. Then I leaned against it, breathing hard, fighting back tears. Was he right? Had Grandma really changed her mind? Had I imagined our conversation in the garden? No. I refused to believe it. There was more to this story, and I was going to find out what it was. I looked down at the journal in my hands. It was one of Grandma's later ones, the soft leather worn from years of handling. I hadn't meant to take it specifically, it was just the closest one when Vincent rang the doorbell. I ran my fingers over the embossed initials on the cover, E.F. Eliza Fleming. My namesake and my champion. On impulse, I opened it, flipping through the pages filled with her elegant handwriting. The entries were mostly mundane, garden notes, book club reflections, observations about the changing seasons. And then, a passage from just 3 months ago caught my eye. Vincent visited today. Again pressing me about selling the house. I've told him repeatedly that Madison will inherit this place, but he refuses to accept it. There's a coldness in him that worries me, a hunger that no amount of success seems to satisfy. I fear what he might do when I'm gone. Which is why I've taken certain precautions. My heart raced as I turned the page, eager to learn what precautions my grandmother had taken. But the next entry was about her garden club meeting. I flipped through the rest of the journal, searching for more clues, but found nothing concrete. Just vague references to arrangements and safeguards. What had Grandma done? And more importantly, where was the proof? The sun was setting now, casting long shadows through the house. I needed to be methodical if I was going to find whatever Grandma had hidden. And I needed to do it fast, the hearing was in 3 days. I set the journal aside and looked around the study. If I were Grandma, where would I hide something important? Something she didn't want Vincent to find? My gaze fell on her writing desk, an antique roll top with dozens of tiny drawers and compartments. I'd spent hours as a child playing with it, fascinated by its hidden nooks and secret spaces. I started with the obvious places, the drawers, the cubbyholes, the space beneath the blotter. Nothing unusual. Then I remembered one of Grandma's favorite sayings, the best hiding place is often in plain sight. I looked at the desk again, this time with new eyes. What was I missing? My phone buzzed again, a text from my attorney. Found something interesting. Meet tomorrow, 9 a.m. A spark of hope ignited in my chest. Maybe we wouldn't need to find Grandma's proof after all. Maybe Mr. Hargrove had already discovered it. But as I settled onto the window seat for the night, unwilling to leave the house unattended, I couldn't shake the feeling that the answer was here, somewhere in this grand old house that had witnessed generations of Fleming family drama. "What am I missing, Grandma?" I whispered to the empty room. "What did you hide, and where did you hide it?" The house creaked and settled around me, its secrets still intact. But not for long. I was determined to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. Because this wasn't just about property anymore. It was about justice. It was about honoring my grandmother's wishes. And it was about exposing Vincent for the manipulative liar he truly was. I woke to the gentle chiming of Grandma's antique grandfather clock, its resonant tones striking 7 times. For a moment, I was disoriented, expecting to find myself in my cramped apartment in the city. Instead, morning light streamed through the stained glass, painting the hardwood floor with jewel tones. The events of yesterday came flooding back. Vincent's betrayal. The contested will. Grandma's mysterious precautions. I had 3 days until the hearing. 3 days to find whatever Grandma had hidden. I made my way to the kitchen, following the familiar scent of age-softened wood and the faint lingering aroma of Grandma's signature lavender and rosemary sachets. The kitchen was a monument to another era, heavy cast-iron cookware hanging from a rack, well-loved wooden spoons in a ceramic crock, a vintage refrigerator that hummed contentedly. As I put the kettle on for tea, I noticed something on the refrigerator door, a photograph held by a magnet shaped like a rose. It was an old picture of Vincent and me as children, building sandcastles on a beach. His arm was protectively around my shoulders, both of us grinning with gap-toothed smiles. My chest tightened. When had things changed between us? When had his protectiveness morphed into this cold, calculating greed? It had been gradual, I supposed. Little comments here and there about my impractical writing career. Dismissing my opinions at family gatherings. And always, positioning himself as Grandma's favorite, ensuring he was the one who drove her to doctor's appointments, who handled her financial paperwork, who was ostensibly looking out for her best interests. By the time I realized what was happening, he'd already established himself as her primary caretaker, edging me to the periphery of her life. Except, that wasn't quite right, was it? I remembered the secret lunches Grandma and I shared when Vincent was at work. The long phone calls where she would read me passages from the novels she was enjoying. The way she encouraged my writing when everyone else in the family thought it was a dead-end pursuit. No, Vincent hadn't succeeded in driving a wedge between us. He just thought he had. The kettle whistled, pulling me from my thoughts. As I prepared my tea, my phone buzzed with a reminder, meeting with Mr. Hargrove in an hour. I hurried through my morning routine, choosing clothes that projected confidence I didn't entirely feel, dark jeans, a crisp white blouse, and the pearl earrings Grandma had given me for my 30th birthday. "Every woman needs a pair of good pearls," she'd said. "They remind us of our own hidden depths." The drive to Mr. Hargrove's office took me past Vincent's investment firm, its gleaming glass exterior reflecting the morning sun. Financial success made manifest in architecture. Did he really need Grandma's estate on top of everything else he already had? Mr. Hargrove's office was the polar opposite of my brother's workplace, a converted Victorian similar to Grandma's house, with worn leather chairs and bookcases lining the walls. When his secretary showed me in, he was already pulling files from a cabinet, his silver hair catching the light. "Madison, good morning. Thank you for coming on such short notice. You said you found something?" He gestured for me to sit, then settled behind his desk with a heavy file folder. "Yes, though I'm not entirely sure what it means yet." He extracted a document, sliding it across to me. This is a copy of the will Vincent submitted to the court. Notice the date. I examined the paper. March 15th. That's just 2 weeks before Grandma died. Yes. And here's where it gets interesting. He placed another document beside the first. This is a copy of your grandmother's appointment calendar. On March 15th, she was in the hospital. Pneumonia. She wasn't discharged until the 18th. I frowned. So she couldn't have signed a new will on the 15th. Exactly. Which means either the date is wrong, or the will is a forgery, I finished, a surge of validation coursing through me. Mr. Hargrove nodded. That would be my assumption. But proving it is another matter. The witness signatures appear genuine, and the notary stamp is legitimate. My momentary triumph deflated. So how do we fight this? We need to find the real will. The one your grandmother told you about. I ran a hand through my hair in frustration. I've been searching the house, but I haven't found anything yet. Mr. Hargrove leaned forward, his expression serious. Madison, if your brother has indeed submitted fraudulent documents to the court, that's a criminal offense. Are you prepared for what that might mean for your family? I thought of the photograph on Grandma's refrigerator. The little boy with his arm around me. The brother I'd once adored. He made his choice, I said firmly. I'm just trying to honor Grandma's wishes. Mr. Hargrove nodded, seemingly satisfied with my resolve. All right. Keep searching the house. I'll have my assistant pull the hospital records to confirm your grandmother's stay, and I'll look into the notary who supposedly witnessed the will. We have 3 days until the hearing. Let's make them count. As I stood to leave, he added, one more thing, Madison. Be careful. People who commit fraud rarely stop at just one deception. The warning sent a chill down my spine. What else might Vincent be capable of? Back at Grandma's house, I found the front door unlocked. My heart raced as I cautiously stepped inside, half expecting to find Vincent rifling through Grandma's belongings. Instead, I found my cousin Charlotte sitting at the kitchen table, calmly sipping a cup of tea. Charlie, I said, surprise momentarily overriding my worry. What are you doing here? Charlotte and I had once been close, 2 misfit granddaughters who preferred books to social gatherings. But after college, she'd gravitated toward Vincent's orbit, impressed by his connections and status. Vincent called me, she said, setting down her cup. He's worried about you, Maddie. Said you're holed up here having some kind of breakdown over Grandma's will. Of course he had. Vincent was rallying the troops, trying to make me look unstable. I'm not having a breakdown, I said, keeping my voice even. I'm protecting Grandma's legacy from Vincent's fraud. Charlotte's eyebrows rose. Fraud? That's a serious accusation, Maddie. Vincent said you've been making wild claims, but they're not wild claims, I interrupted, pulling out my phone. I showed her the calendar Mr. Hargrove had given me. Grandma was in the hospital the day this will was supposedly signed. She physically could not have been there. Charlotte studied the calendar, her expression troubled. That doesn't necessarily mean. Charlie, you know as well as I do that Grandma wanted this house preserved. Vincent has been trying to sell it to developers for years. Why else would he forge a will putting everything in his name? She was silent for a long moment, conflict evident in her face. What exactly did Grandma tell you about her will? I sat across from her, meeting her gaze directly. She told me she was leaving the house to me because she knew I'd preserve it. She said Vincent would just sell it off. And when was this conversation? About a month before she died. We were in the garden, deadheading her roses. Charlotte nodded slowly. She said something similar to me, actually. Not about the will specifically, but about you being the guardian of her legacy. I thought she was being poetic. Hope surged within me. You believe me, then? Charlotte sighed. I don't know what to believe, Maddie. Vincent has always been the responsible one, the one who managed the family affairs. It's hard to imagine him doing something like this. The implication stung, that I was the irresponsible one, the flighty writer who couldn't be trusted with serious matters. You don't have to imagine it, I said, my voice sharper than intended. The evidence is right in front of you. Charlotte flinched slightly. I'm just saying it's complicated. There are legal channels for this kind of dispute. Breaking into Grandma's house and clearing out her belongings isn't the answer. I didn't break in. I have a key. And I'm not clearing out her belongings, I'm looking for her real will. Charlotte stood, gathering her purse. Just be careful, Maddie. Vincent has a lot of influence. A lot of resources. Is that a threat? It's a reality check. She moved toward the door, then paused. For what it's worth, I hope you're wrong about him. But if you're not. She hesitated. Grandma kept her most important documents in the bottom drawer of her jewelry box. The one with the false bottom. With that cryptic piece of information, she left, the door closing softly behind her. I stood frozen for a moment, processing her words. Grandma's jewelry box. The one with the false bottom. I raced upstairs to Grandma's bedroom, where her antique jewelry box sat on the dresser. It was a beautiful piece, cherry wood with inlaid mother-of-pearl flowers. I'd admired it countless times, but I'd never noticed a false bottom. I carefully removed the trays of jewelry, setting aside the pearl necklaces, the vintage brooches, the rings that had been passed down through generations of Fleming women. At the bottom was a drawer that slid out smoothly. It appeared to be just a velvet-lined compartment for larger pieces. But when I ran my fingers along the edges, I felt a slight indentation on one side. I pressed it gently, and there was a soft click. The velvet lining lifted, revealing a hidden compartment. My hands trembled as I reached inside, pulling out a sealed envelope. On the front, in Grandma's elegant handwriting, were the words, "To be opened in the event of any dispute over my estate." Inside was a letter, dated just a month before her death, and a flash drive. I began to read. My dearest Madison. If you're reading this, then my fears have been realized. Vincent has always been transparent in his ambitions, though he believes himself to be clever. I've known for some time that he might try to manipulate my final wishes. What he doesn't know is that I've been recording our conversations for the past year, ever since he first suggested I sell the house. You'll find these recordings on the enclosed drive, including several where he explicitly talks about forging documents after my death. The true copy of my will is with Judge Caroline Winters, an old friend who has agreed to keep it safe until needed. Contact her directly if Vincent tries to present an alternative version. Remember, my dear, our family legacy is not just in property or possessions, it's in integrity, in honoring our word. Vincent forgot that somewhere along the way. All my love. Grandma Eliza. P.S. Don't forget to check behind the loose brick in the garden wall. Some treasures are better left outside the house. Tears blurred my vision as I finished reading. Grandma had known. She'd seen through Vincent's facade and prepared accordingly. I clutched the letter to my chest, both vindicated and heartbroken. How long had Vincent been planning this? How long had Grandma been silently gathering evidence against her own grandson? The flash drive felt heavy in my palm, weighted with revelations I wasn't sure I was ready to hear. But I had to know. I had to understand the full extent of Vincent's betrayal. I went downstairs to Grandma's study, where her old laptop still sat on the desk. As it whirred to life, I inserted the flash drive, bracing myself for what I might discover. The drive contained dozens of audio files, neatly labeled with dates. I clicked on the most recent one, dated just 2 weeks before Grandma's death. Vincent's voice filled the room, smooth and persuasive. "Grandma, I've brought the papers for you to sign. It's just a formality, really. Making me the executor simplifies everything." Grandma's voice was weaker than I remembered, but her wit was still sharp. "You know my wishes, Vincent. The house goes to Madison. Madison doesn't have the resources to maintain a property like this. She'd be underwater within a year. I'm just trying to protect the family legacy. By selling it to developers? That's not protection, that's destruction. Times change, Grandma. This neighborhood is evolving. The land alone is worth millions. This house has stood for over a century. It will stand for a century more, with Madison as its guardian." Vincent's voice took on an edge I'd never heard before. "You're being stubborn for no reason. Madison is a failed writer who can barely pay her rent. How is she going to handle the property taxes on this place? The maintenance? You're setting her up for failure." "My decision is final, Vincent. Now, if you'll excuse me, I'm feeling tired." I heard rustling, then Vincent's voice, suddenly solicitous. "Of course, Grandma. Rest well. I'll come by tomorrow." The recording ended, and I sat back, shaken. The contempt in Vincent's voice when he spoke about me, it was like hearing a stranger, not the brother I'd grown up with. I clicked through several more recordings, each more damning than the last. Vincent pressuring Grandma. Vincent discussing the possibility of having her declared mentally incompetent. Vincent explicitly stating his intention to handle the will after her death. The final recording, dated just days before Grandma passed, chilled me to the bone. "I've got the documents prepared," Vincent was saying to someone who wasn't Grandma. "All I need is the right notary. Someone who won't ask too many questions." A woman's voice, Charlotte's, replied hesitantly. "I don't know, Vincent. If Grandma explicitly told you she's leaving the house to Madison." "Charlotte, be practical. Madison would squander this opportunity. With my connections, we could turn this property into the cornerstone of a real estate empire. I'm offering you a chance to be part of that. But it's not right. It's not what Grandma wants. Grandma won't be around to see what happens to the house. And Madison never has to know the original will existed. It's cleaner this way, for everyone." I sat frozen, the implications washing over me. Charlotte had known. She'd been complicit, at least in the planning stages. And yet, she'd given me the clue about the jewelry box. Was she having second thoughts? Or was this part of a more elaborate deception? The postscript of Grandma's letter suddenly took on new urgency. "Don't forget to check behind the loose brick in the garden wall. Some treasures are better left outside the house." I needed to find that brick before Vincent or Charlotte did. Night was falling as I hurried out to the garden, the flash drive and letter securely in my pocket. Grandma's garden was extensive, with stone walls separating different rooms of plants: the rose garden, the herb garden, the shade garden with its ferns and hostas. Which wall? Which brick? I tried to think like my grandmother. Where would she consider the heart of her garden? The rose garden, of course. Where we'd had our final conversation about the house. I made my way there, switching on my phone's flashlight as darkness descended. The stone wall surrounding the rose garden was old, its mortar crumbling in places. I ran my hand along it, feeling for any loose bricks. Nothing on the first wall. Nothing on the second. On the third wall, near a climbing rose with deep crimson blooms, my fingers found what I was looking for, a brick that moved slightly under pressure. I worked it free, revealing a small cavity behind it. Inside was a weatherproof box. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside was a sealed envelope similar to the one from the jewelry box, a small velvet pouch, and what appeared to be the original copy of Grandma's will, its official seals and signatures clearly visible. The envelope contained another letter. Madison. If you're reading this, you've proven yourself the detective I always knew you to be. The will enclosed is the official version, properly witnessed and notarized. Judge Winters has a copy, as does Mr. Hargrove, though neither was informed of the other to ensure at least one copy survived. The pouch contains my grandmother's wedding ring, a Fleming heirloom that should have gone to my daughter, your mother. Since she chose to leave our family legacy behind, I'm entrusting it to you instead. Vincent has no claim to it, nor does he know of its existence. Trust your instincts, my dear. They've led you this far. With all my love. Grandma Eliza. I opened the velvet pouch, tipping its contents into my palm. The ring was stunning, a sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds in an intricate platinum setting. I'd never seen it before, never even known it existed. As I slipped it onto my finger, a perfect fit, I felt a connection to my grandmother stronger than ever before. She had trusted me not just with her house, but with a piece of family history that predated even her. The sound of a twig snapping behind me made me whirl around, clutching the documents to my chest. Vincent stood at the entrance to the rose garden, his silhouette dark against the night sky. I thought I might find you out here, he said, his voice eerily calm. Charlotte mentioned you had a breakthrough. I came to see it for myself. I took a step back, putting the stone bench between us. It's over, Vincent. I have the original will. And recordings of you planning to forge documents. It's done. He took a step forward, his face now visible in the moonlight. There was no anger there, no panic. Just a cold calculation that frightened me more than rage would have. Nothing's over until I say it is, Maddie. Hand over those documents. I stood my ground. No. They prove what you've done. What you were planning to do. What I've done, he said softly, is try to protect our family's legacy from your impulsive decisions and financial incompetence. You think you can maintain this property on a writer's income? You'll be bankrupt within a year. That's my problem, not yours. It becomes my problem when our family name is attached to a foreclosure notice. He held out his hand. The documents, Madison. Now. No. His expression hardened. You always were stubborn. Even as a child. Always thinking you knew better than everyone else. He took another step forward, and I tensed, ready to run. But before either of us could move, floodlights suddenly illuminated the garden, blinding in their intensity. Vincent Fleming? A firm voice called out. This is Detective Torres. We have a warrant for your arrest on suspicion of attempted fraud and forgery. I blinked against the harsh light, making out several figures entering the garden. One was clearly police. Another was Mr. Hargrove. And beside him, Charlotte. Vincent's composure finally cracked. "You," he snarled at Charlotte. "You did this." Charlotte stepped forward, her chin raised. "I made a choice, Vincent. The same choice you gave me weeks ago. Except I chose integrity over profit." "You called the police?" I asked her, stunned. "After I left here this afternoon, I went straight to Mr. Hargrove. Told him everything I knew about Vincent's plans. Then we called Detective Torres, who's been investigating a string of estate fraud cases." Vincent lunged suddenly, making a grab for the documents in my hand. I stumbled backward, nearly falling. Detective Torres was faster, catching Vincent's arm and twisting it behind his back. "That's enough, Mr. Fleming. You're only making this worse for yourself." As they led Vincent away, reading him his rights, I stood frozen in the garden, the will clutched in one hand, Grandma's ring gleaming on the other. Charlotte approached cautiously, her expression a mixture of guilt and relief. "I'm sorry, Maddie. I should have come forward sooner." When Vincent first approached me with his plan, I told myself it was just talk. That he'd never actually go through with it. "But you gave him the benefit of the doubt, even after he made it clear he was serious." She nodded, ashamed. "He's always been the golden boy. The one who could do no wrong." It was easier to believe him than to question my own judgment. I understood better than she knew. How many times had I deferred to Vincent's superior knowledge? How many times had I doubted myself because he was so confident? "What made you change your mind?" I asked. "Seeing you today. The way you fought for Grandma's wishes. It reminded me of her strength, her integrity. And it made me realize I was on the wrong side." Mr. Hargrove joined us, looking oddly at home among the roses in his tweed jacket. "The will you found is indeed the genuine article," he confirmed. "I've already spoken with Judge Winters, who corroborated everything. The hearing will still proceed, but only as a formality. The house is yours, Madison, just as your grandmother intended." Relief washed over me, followed by a profound sadness. We'd won, but at what cost? My brother was being led away in handcuffs. Our family was more fractured than ever. As if reading my thoughts, Charlotte touched my arm gently. "You didn't do this, Maddie. Vincent made his choices. All you did was protect Grandma's legacy, which is exactly what she trusted you to do." I nodded, running my thumb over Grandma's ring. In the moonlight, the sapphire seemed to glow with an inner fire. "What happens now?" I asked Mr. Hargrove. "That depends on whether you want to press charges." I thought of the recordings, of Vincent's cold voice as he plotted to steal what was rightfully mine. Of his contempt when he spoke of my writing career. Of his willingness to erase Grandma's true wishes for his own gain. And yet, beneath all that was the memory of a little boy with his arm around me on a beach. My big brother. My protector. "Let's see what he has to say for himself first," I said finally. "Maybe there's still a chance to salvage something from all this." As we walked back toward the house, the stone walls of the garden seemed to stand a little taller, as if approving of my decision. Grandma's house, my house now, waited, its windows glowing warmly in the darkness. Whatever came next, I would face it with the same quiet determination that had guided Eliza Fleming through her own challenges. I would honor her legacy not just by preserving her home, but by living with the integrity she had valued so highly. The investigation into Vincent's activities moved swiftly, revealing a pattern of manipulation that extended far beyond Grandma's will. Financial records showed he'd been systematically diverting funds from our family's trust for years, using the money to make risky investments that had mostly failed. His prestigious position at the investment firm was hanging by a thread, his reputation tarnished by rumors of ethical breaches. Vincent's perfect life was unraveling, thread by thread. 3 weeks after his arrest, I sat across from him in a sterile visitation room at the county jail. He looked diminished somehow, his designer clothes replaced by a jumpsuit, his usually immaculate hair slightly disheveled. "I didn't think you'd come," he said, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "I wasn't sure I would either," I admitted. "But I needed answers." Vincent's gaze dropped to his hands, folded on the table between us. "They say you're not pressing charges." "I haven't decided yet. I wanted to hear your side first." He laughed, a hollow sound. "My side? What does that matter now? The evidence speaks for itself, doesn't it? I want to understand, Vincent. When did it start? When did you decide to betray everything Grandma stood for?" He was silent for a long moment, as if weighing how much to reveal. "It wasn't a single decision," he said finally. "It was 1,000 little compromises. A shortcut here. A white lie there. Until the line between right and wrong blurred completely." "But why? You had everything, a successful career, a beautiful family, Grandma's love." His eyes met mine, and for the first time, I saw past the facade to the turmoil beneath. I had the appearance of everything. The reality was quite different. Vincent ran a hand through his hair. "The firm was investigating me for irregularities. Melissa left me 6 months ago, took the kids to her parents in Connecticut. And Grandma." He swallowed hard. "Grandma saw through me. She always did." I sat back, stunned. "You were living a complete lie." "I was drowning, Maddie. The house, it was my last chance to fix everything. The property values in that neighborhood are skyrocketing. With what developers were offering, I could have settled my debts, started fresh. At my expense. Yes. No excuses. No justifications. Just a simple acknowledgement of his selfishness. Why didn't you just ask for help, Vincent? We're family." He laughed again, more bitter this time. "Ask for help? From whom? You, with your struggling writing career? Dad, who can barely keep his own finances together? Grandma, who would have been so disappointed she might have cut me off entirely? You don't know that. Don't I? She always held me to a higher standard, Maddie. The golden boy, as you used to call me. Do you have any idea what that pressure was like? To always be perfect? To never fail?" I shook my head. "That was in your head, Vincent. That was in your head, Vincent. Grandma loved you exactly as you were, not some perfect version you thought you had to be." He looked away, a muscle working in his jaw. "Maybe. Or maybe she just lowered her expectations for me like everyone else did for you." The barb stung, but I recognized it for what it was, a desperate attempt to shift blame, to make me the villain in his narrative. "I'm not pressing charges," I said quietly. His head snapped up, surprise evident in his face. "Why?" "Not for you. For Grandma. She valued family above all else, even when that family disappointed her." "But Vincent," I leaned forward, meeting his gaze directly. "I won't help you beyond this. Whatever consequences come from the financial investigation, from Melissa, from your firm, those are yours to face alone." Relief and resignation warred on his face. "I understand." As I stood to leave, he called after me, "What will you do with the house?" I paused at the door. Exactly what Grandma wanted. Preserve it. Liven it. Fill it with stories again. The ghost of a genuine smile crossed his face. You always were the sentimental one. Someone in this family had to be. 2 months later, I stood in my garden, watching the early summer roses unfurl. The house behind me hummed with new life. My writing desk now occupied her study, my books mingled with hers on the shelves. Charlotte visited often, helping me sort through Grandma's belongings, sharing memories I hadn't known existed. We were rebuilding our relationship, one careful conversation at a time. Vincent had pleaded guilty to lesser charges, avoiding jail time but accepting probation and financial restitution. We spoke occasionally, stilted, cautious conversations that might one day evolve into something resembling family again. As I deadhead the roses, Grandma's ring caught the sunlight, sending prisms dancing across the garden wall. Behind the loose brick, now securely mortared in place, I'd left a letter of my own, a record of these events for future generations of Flemings. Some lessons deserve to be remembered. The best legacy is truth, Grandma had written in one of her journals. Standing in her garden, my garden now, I finally understood what she meant.